Okay, so biology chapter 2, the first part, we are going to stop when it gets to DNA, and we're going to talk about that next week. But first, we're going to talk about the parts of an atom. And if you've taken chemistry, some of you even had it with me in atomic age. So the atom has 3 parts. And these are on your note sheet, so you can just fill in the parts that you need to. So an atom has a proton. You can't see the board at all. Hold on. There. Ah. Hold on. I'm going to move you over a little. There. Has a proton, a neutron, and an electron. The proton has a positive charge, the neutron has no charge, and the electron has negative charge. The proton and the neutron are in the nucleus, or the center of the atom. The electron orbits the atom. Ions are charged molecules. We'll go with molecules. Not molecules. What is the word? I don't have the word on my sheet. Hold on. I did bring whoever's biology book, whoever left it in class, I have your biology book. How are they defining ions? I know what an ion is, but I want to make sure I say the same thing there. Okay. Charged particles, which are, okay. Okay, I don't know what I was looking for. So ions are charged particles when an atom gains or loses an electron. Cations lose an electron, and therefore they're positive. Now, so cations lose electrons and therefore are positive. You can remember that by cats are positive, but that goes against what we learned about catabolism. Catabolic metabolism. So cations are positive ions that lose electrons. Anions, maybe I could just move this here. Then I don't have to move the camera. Okay, anions, A negative. They are negative ions and they gain electrons. Electrons are negatively charged. So if you get more of them, you're more negatively charged. If you give some away, you're going to become positively charged. Okay, there are 3 types of bonds. This is just giving you some basics. We are not going to have a lot of this that we have to know. So just what's on here. There's 3 types of bonds. There's ionic, covalent, and hydrogen. Ionic bonds give or take electrons. So they're either going to give them or take them. They form ions. See the word ion and ionic? Covalent are nice. They like to share. These are the preschoolers. They share with each other. And the hydrogen bonds are weak bonds between hydrogen and oxygen, sometimes nitrogen or fluorine. So hydrogen are weak bonds between hydrogen and oxygen. Water, for example, which is what we're going to talk about. Water is very special. So I gave you different ways. If you look on your note sheet, they are bolded. Probably would have been better if I numbered them, but they're bolded. Water is polar. That means that parts of it are positive and parts of it are negative. So you have oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen is slightly positive and oxygen is slightly negative. The electrons that orbit hydrogen actually spend more time over here by oxygen than they do by hydrogen. They spend more time over here, which makes oxygen slightly negative. They don't totally live over here, but they spend more time here. Okay? So polar parts are positive and parts are negative. Electrons spend more time by the oxygen. Okay. Water also dissolves many things. So it is a universal solvent is what it's often called. So if you think about it, we dissolve a lot of things in water. So likes dissolve likes. Polar molecules will dissolve polar molecules. Non-polar molecules dissolve non-polar molecules. So one way to think about this is water and oil. If you mix water and oil, they do not mix together. So they do not like each other. There's two words on here, hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Hydrophilic loves water. It is going to dissolve in water. It likes water. Hydrophobic does not like water and won't dissolve in it. So that would be like your oils. So if you've ever had cooking oil, if you just try to wash it out of a pan, it doesn't wash out of the pan well. You have to add soap. And then the soap actually breaks the tension between water and oil and makes it dissolve. Okay, the third thing about water is ice is less dense than liquid water. Any other substance on Earth, the solid form is more dense and therefore sinks. Ice is less dense, and so it floats. And you know, if you put ice in your cup, it floats in the cup. That is a very unique feature due to the hydrogen bonding. This is a very important feature for life to survive in rivers and lakes. So a river and a lake freezes at the top first, and it freezes top down. So there's always water left at the bottom of a lake or a river. Even in the middle of winter, there's still at the very bottom of a lake or a river, there's still some water. So the fish that are there can stay alive. They have water to just be in and live. So people can go ice fishing and things in there. Also, the ice acts as an insulator to keep that water warm enough that the fish can live through it. So that's a very important feature of water for marine life. Cohesion. So you guys did a cohesion lab. Well, actually, you did capillary action, which is adhesion. So cohesion is attracted to its own molecules. Attracted to its own molecules. So water likes itself. That produces surface tension. On page 35 in your book, I'm going to read you this paragraph because I liked the way it talked about it. This is why surface tension is important for your lungs. Surface tension can be quite strong. For example, in the lungs, oxygen moves from the air and into the blood in a structure called alveolus, which has a thin layer of water coating its inner and outer surfaces. The alveolus could easily collapse under the pull of surface tension, so the body produces a substance called a surfactant that interacts with the water to lower the water's surface tension enough for the alveolus to expand and contract during breathing. When there's not enough surfactant, which could happen, for instance, when a baby's born too early, breathing is very difficult. So I thought that was really interesting. But surface tension does things like letting a paperclip float, or there are certain bugs that can walk across water. So cohesion, it produces surface tension. Water likes itself. It wants to be close to itself. If you take a drop of water and put it on a piece of wax paper, it forms like a little bubble. That's cohesion. It likes itself. Adhesion is when it's attracted to similar substances, so other polar molecules. So dew clinging to the grass, which is important because it reduces the rate at which grass would lose its water. So these are important features. The special features of water are good for our earth. So God made water in a special way to allow things to work well on our earth. Also, capillary action, which you guys did in your lab where you saw the water go up different types of paper. Water can go opposite of gravity because of the adhesion is stronger than the gravity. So water could climb up your papers. This is very important in trees or plants, but especially trees. Water needs to get from the ground all the way up to the top of the tree. That occurs through adhesion up the columns and off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's xylem or phloem, but it's either xylem or phloem. It goes all the way up them to the top of the trees. And that occurs through adhesion. I will bring capillary tubes next week and we will at least see how those work. So, adhesion, attracted to similar substances. It did not go up the wax paper or parchment paper that's coated in wax. Wax is a fat. It is not going to like water. Okay, water also holds heat. Needs a lot of energy to evaporate. This is called heat capacity. This is a good thing. Otherwise, all the water on Earth might evaporate really quickly, and that would not be good for us. Okay, next part. Carbohydrates. Definition. A molecule composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen, which is on your paper already, and oxygen. In which there are twice as many hydrogen as oxygen. There's always, in order for it to be a carbohydrate, it has to have 2 times of hydrogen as oxygen. So if your book gave you C6H12O6 and said, is this a carbohydrate? Yes, because there's twice as many hydrogen as oxygen. But if you were given C6H6O6, that is not a carbohydrate. The hydrogen and oxygen numbers are equal. On your paper, I have a picture of the structure of glucose, which is a simple sugar. And it shows you have a hydroxyl group. All those OH groups that I have circled on here are hydroxyl groups. They make molecules polar. It's OH. That makes sense, right? Just like water. There's also double bonding in there, sharing twice as many electrons. So I'm just kind of clarifying what that molecule looks like. You do not have to memorize what this molecule looks like. It's just to give you an idea. So a monosaccharide, which is what glucose is the building block of carbohydrates. Monosaccharides are the building blocks of carbohydrates. They are sweet tasting. This is going to be your simple sugar. Disaccharides, see the letters di, meaning 2, has 2 monosaccharides. Dehydration reaction at the hydroxyl groups, at those OH groups, join the monosaccharides. When you join them, you're releasing energy. Okay. Are we releasing energy or? I gotta double check that. Okay. Polysaccharides are 3 or more monosaccharides. Hold on, I gotta look at this dehydration. I think I may have written something backwards. Where is the glossary? Hold on. Hang in there. There it is. Skipped a page. Okay, dehydration. They do not have it in the back. Okay. I don't like when they don't put things in the back. Okay. Did I say, since water is removed, we call important reagent. Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay, no. Okay, you can just mark out the releases energy. Dehydration reaction at hydroxyl groups to join monosaccharide. Mark out that it releases energy. I'm not finding that, and I want to double check because it's actually the other way. So it's sweet tasting. A polysaccharide is 3 or more monosaccharides joined together. That's a hydrolysis reaction when hydrolysis reaction is when you add water to break the molecules. So if we have a polysaccharide, we have a glucose and a glucose and a glucose joined together. we can do a hydrolysis and break those. Hydrolysis means we're adding water and get individual glucose molecules. Our body uses the glucose molecules for energy. You'll learn that when we talk about cellular respiration. We use these glucose for energy, so we need them in this form. But we can sometimes store them as disaccharides or polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are not sweet tasting. These are going to be your starches. So they're not sweet tasting. Okay, carbohydrates are the main source of energy. Chemical bonds, B-O-N-D-S, store lots of energy, which is released during catabolism. Catabolism is the breaking of bonds. So, chemical bonds store lots of energy, which is released during catabolism, the breaking of bonds. Quickly available energy, but it only lasts a short time. So this energy is quickly available, but it's short. You know what it's like when you just eat sugar. Cellulose in plants. The cellulose in plants helps keep them rigid so that they don't just fall over. If you want to think of cellulose, think of eating celery. That's a good example of what cellulose would be like. It's that sturdy, but kind of like eating celery. Most animals can't break down, so the cellulose is just going to pass through your digestive system. But it helps as it passes to move other waste through your digestive system. That's why it's good to eat those things. Okay, carbohydrates. The building block of carbohydrates are monosaccharides. Lipids. Definition, a hydrophobic. That means it doesn't like water. Molecule that dissolves in non-polar environments. So, lipids are a structural component in your cells. They help build the cell membrane. They're also an energy source from the carbon-to-carbon bonds, but that's a long-term energy. We don't eat fats to get a quick energy source. Okay, so you can see there I showed you a glycerol, a fatty acid, and triglyceride. A triglyceride, all lipids have a glycerol molecule. A triglyceride then has 3 fatty acids. Now, on the right-hand side, this is a phospholipid. This is what builds your cell membranes, these phospholipids. We'll talk about all of that more later, but it has a phosphate, a glycerol, and 2 fatty acids. So, triglyceride is 1 glycerol and 3 fatty acids. Fatty acids have hydrocarbon and organic acid. Saturated fatty acid. All carbons are full of hydrogen. So that's saturated fat. Everything's full. That would be like animal meats. Those are going to be solids. Unsaturated fatty acids don't have all the hydrogens built into the fatty acid. And so those are going to be liquid at room temperature because the molecules can't get really close together to form a solid because there's not ability to get close together. So your vegetable oils. Trans fat is when you add hydrogen to the double bonds in an unsaturated fatty acid. So you have double bonds and you kind of break the double bonds and add hydrogens. That would be a trans fat. Phospholipids, a phosphate, a glycerol, and 2 fatty acid chains. Steroids are long fatty acid chains linked into complex of rings. So cholesterol is an example of a steroid. Waxes are fatty acid monomer, so 1, and an alcohol. And the example there is earwax. Okay, so the building blocks of carbohydrates is a monosaccharide. The building blocks of a lipid is a glycerol and fatty acid. Then we have protein. My foot is falling asleep. Okay, the building block of protein is an amino acid. So, proteins are complex polypeptide. Poly means many. That plays a role in the chemistry of an organism. Almost every function in your body is controlled by proteins in some form or another. So they're made from amino acids, which is an amino group and an acid group, and you see a little picture. That R group is what makes all the amino acids different. There are 20 different amino acids in our body. That R group is the one that makes them different. Most amino acids our body can make. There are a few amino acids that our body has to consume. And if we consume meat products, we can get all of those. The problem comes if you're a vegetarian, you have to make sure you combine things in the right way And that's why beans and rice is typically a well-known vegetarian dish, because it gives you all your amino acids you would need. So there are 20 different amino acids. There's a peptide bond which links 2 amino acids together. Dipeptides are 2 amino acid groups. Polypeptides have more than 2 amino acid groups. A protein can have between 20 and 27,000 amino acids. So proteins can be really long or fairly short. So those 20 different amino acids can code for every function in your body. And they're coded by your DNA, which we're going to talk about next week. They're coded by your DNA. Okay, so there are 6 different groups of proteins. Structural serves as a component of a structure of the cell. Movement enables various cell components to move from one place to another. Transport, capable of moving substances or structures from one location to another. Receptors receive signal information sent from one cell to another. Signaling serves as a messenger to send cell-to-cell communication. You know, especially like in your brain, you kind of want things to hear the interactions, right? You want to know, you want your eye stuff to get back to the lobe to tell what's going on, or your ears, what you hear, to get back to for your brain to process it. Then we have enzymes, which function to speed up chemical reactions. So if you've taken chemistry and you've talked about catalyst, an enzyme is a catalyst. It speeds up the chemical reaction so that we can actually get it done in a reasonable time to make bodies function. pH and temperature can have an effect on proteins. Okay, that is biochemistry in a nutshell. And this is an entire college course, so obviously it's a limited amount you're getting here. And then next week we will discuss building DNA molecules and what DNA is and how we actually build proteins from DNA. Okay.